Senator Biaggi and Leah Hebert, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Senator, I want to start with you. The governor apologized or non-apologized on Wednesday at a press conference. It was his first public appearance since the sexual harassment allegations came out. You watched it. What did you think of it, and where do you think we go from here?
Well, I think the first place to start is that nothing that the governor said changes the seriousness of the situation that we are all living through at this moment. I think it's very clear that the governor knows how serious his behavior is being taken, and it should be taken. And I think that was clear just from some of the words and the language that he used. But I think still my logic remains the same that it has been even before this press conference today. And the logic is essentially the fact that if we all as New Yorkers can agree that a governor who acts abusively or has a toxic work environment that he creates is not worthy of the office that he holds, should resign, which I hope that we all could agree. And we also then can agree that, you know, the three women who've come forward, not only are they credible, but I certainly believe them. I've been very vocal about that. But if we just hone in on what Charlotte has said, the fact that the governor has not denied that, if we can agree that what the governor has not denied, which is that he asked a younger staffer about her sex life, if we can agree that that is something that is not only abusive but toxic, then I think that we can conclude that the governor should resign. I think that the press conference was unfortunately just inadequate, ultimately, in terms of what is necessary to take seriously and hold accountable his actions.
Leah, I want to turn to you. Can you just zoom out for us for people that aren't familiar with sexual harassment? Because I hope that most people don't experience it in the workplace, so they might just not have any context for this. Can you explain to our viewers and listeners what the governor did, why it was wrong, and why it's classified as sexual harassment?
I think, for me, this has been really hard as a victim myself, who's gone through almost identically what Lindsay and Charlotte have come forward to say happened to them. And asking inappropriate questions. These inappropriate questions are not just questions. They are directly impacting a person's ability to do their job. It feels so threatening. It feels humiliating. It feels shameful. And the governor has, and we've seen this, a power of retaliating against people who speak out against them. And so victims are weighing this in their response to him. I mean, we saw this in Lindsay's statement of trying to get out of the situation. That is something that as survivors, how do you survive that moment? How do you survive tomorrow? How do you move on to another job and get another career? How do you pay your bills? Will you still be able to live in your apartment? And when you work for an elected official, it's not like working in a private company. When you work for an elected official, they're connected to everyone in your field. So for someone like Cuomo, who, when Lindsay first came out, retaliated against her by leaking a confidential file, and then also too, like just his reaction in, when Charlotte, who is so incredibly young, came forward and, she was transferred and then had to leave government because she didn't feel comfortable. When she came forward as a sexual assault survivor to him, he still persisted in all of the inappropriate questions to her. This is something that I personally experienced at the hands of Vito Lopez. And the trauma that she must be going through right now is the trauma that I experienced in this situation.
The governor's behavior, you were pivotal in creating the state's new, stronger sexual harassment laws. From what we've read from Lindsay and Charlotte's accounts, do we know whether the governor may or may not have broken some of those laws? And if so, what are the consequences for that?
So he most certainly did break those laws. The laws that we passed last year, and with the support of a lot of different stakeholders, and Senator Biaggi sponsored that law, it eliminated the severe or pervasive standard that was, prohibited so many people from coming forward. And ironically, the governor actually tried to take credit for this being his idea, which clearly he doesn't believe in. But so what the law does is it basically prohibits harassment based on gender for if the conditions subject you to worse terms of employment, but it doesn't include things that are petty, slight, or trivial. So when your 60-year-old something boss, asks if you have sex with older men, whether or not you're monogamous, these are not petty slights. And then being kissed on the lips, being forcibly kissed on the lips, is obviously not a petty slight. Now, the consequences of this are going to really be up to what the AG's report says, but it's also up to the victims whether or not they want to pursue their claims in court. And I think the other consequences and the political consequences are what the voters and his colleagues are going to do, because obviously he can no longer lead.
So, Senator, is this an opportunity to maybe strengthen the state's sexual harassment laws? It seems clear that the governor did something that may have broken the laws that are currently on the books, but is there anything more that the situation can kind of shine a light on?
There is always something more. We only began the work of making our laws stronger in 2019. We set out to do so much. Obviously, the pandemic has slowed us down. Although if it was up to me, last year we would have passed an additional set of laws to make not only this behavior that's being described here prohibited from workspaces in ways that perhaps it already isn't, but just to really set the tone here, right? Because what is very clear to me is that we changed the laws and it was no easy task. But what is even clearer now is that it seems like it's easier to change the law than to change and shift the culture. And that is deeply troubling. And so the more laws that we pass that send a signal that say one voice is enough to speak up, it is a zero tolerance policy no matter where you work, right? Eliminating this threat of liquidated damages if you speak up or speak out and you signed an NDA. Holding ourselves as members of the legislature and the government accountable, and making sure that we as elected officials are considered employers. Because funny enough, at the last hour in 2019, when we were negotiating the bills that everyone, of course, knows about, that piece of the provision was taken away. Why? Because the legislature is notorious for having not only bad behavior, but harassment and abuse and misconduct throughout the hallways. I want everyone who's listening right now to think about how hard is it to have a conversation with your boss about wanting to go on vacation, wanting to, take some time off, leave early, whatever it is that we have to have that anxiety that we feel when we try to have a conversation with our boss. Imagine that, and that person is the governor of the state of New York. Okay, so the power dynamic here is just tremendous. And so I just hope that in us talking about it and that we keep repeating the call for the seriousness with which sexual harassment is, that we also invite in and call in people who maybe historically would say, well, that's just the way it is. It doesn't have to be that way.
And I hope that we are all here to see the day when Albany isn't known as a place where sexual harassment is pervasive and just a part of the job and just a part of the culture. I hope that we all get to see the day where that no longer exists, but we have to leave it there. Leah Hebert from the Sexual Harassment Working Group and Senator Alessandra Biaggi, thank you so much.
Thank you.